Okay. Hi, this is Pantomime of Paradigms, number 2. Well, I want to talk about how I got interested in China. Really? I travelled in Asia in the mid-70s, in the late 70s. And I was always interested in China, but I suppose it came up during the commodity boom about 15 years ago. Really, my serious interest in China began. When we all wondered whether the commodities would keep going up forever, and all of that. And I was reading a lot on a financial site called financialsense.com. And on financialsense.com, there was American site, a lot of writers, all the usual suspects, the silver bulls and all that. Anyway, I submitted a few articles, and this is one of the articles that I wrote back then. China, an historian's view. The China story is one of the most amazing tales of our time, from the incredible turmoil of civil war and war with Japan, arose a Marxist state that bemused us boomers with as we pondered the great leap forward and the famine that followed. We saw the happy smiles of contented workers on model farms and iconic images of millions of Chinese waving their little red books on the television. Real GDP grew 17% in the 60s, 70% in the 70s, 63% in the turbulent 80s, and 175% in the 90s. While this development has been concentrated in the coastal and southern provinces, efforts have been made in recent times to expand the prosperity to the inner provinces and the industrial northeast. Since the start of the China story, we've often heard how it will all end badly in civil disorder or economic collapse, whereas Jim Rogers, the commodity guru, has argued that the next big correction in China will be a massive buying opportunity. Well, then what's the real deal on China? Well, I thought back then that it might be useful to consult a historian, and so I found a strong opinion was held by a great one. A man who was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Literature and the highest award granted by the United States government to civilians. That's the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which was given to William James Durant in 1977. Now, William James Durant was an American philosopher, historian and writer, born in November the 5th, 1885. Died November 7th, 1981. He's best known for his authorship and co-authorship with his wife Ariel of his 8-volume opus called The Story of Civilization. Will received his doctorate in 1917 and worked as an instructor at Columbia University. And The Story of Philosophy, which is a sort of primer, he wrote a lot of those, like 100 greatest books and ideas of all time, stuff like that. The Story of Philosophy was published in 1926 by Simon & Schuster, became a bestseller, giving the Durants the means to travel the world several times and allowing Will to spend 4 decades writing the 11-volume opus. 8 volumes, I think. Anyway, 11 planned, 8 written. This is what Durant wrote, sometimes in the 1920s, probably about 1927 or 1928. Will Durant writing about China in 100 years. The Communist Party is only a small faction in the Civil War. It's still the end of the warlord era. The Communist Party's been barely proclaimed. So that obviously was influencing Will's thinking, and I think this is the important point. He was obviously looking at China from a grander perspective, from whatever we might think about as current politics, and that, of course, is the whole subject of the greater discussion. And of course, he uses terms that we wouldn't be so, fond of using in these more politically correct times. But he's talking about he's writing at the start of a decade of tragedy and famine, before antibiotics. So we must take what he says at face value. This nation, after 3,000 years of grandeur and decay, of repeated deaths and resurrections, exhibits today all the physical and mental vitality that we find in its most creative periods. There are no people in the world more vigorous or more intelligent. No other people so adaptable to circumstance, so resistant to disease, so resilient after disaster and suffering, so trained by history to calm endurance and patient recovery. Imagination cannot describe the possibilities of a civilization mingling the physical labour and mental resources of such a people with the technological equipment of modern industry. Very probably, such wealth will be produced in China as even America has never known, and once more, as so many times in the past, China will lead the world in luxury and the art of life. No victory of arms or tyranny of alien finance can long suppress a nation so rich in resources and vitality. Within a century, China will have absorbed and have civilized its conquerors, and will have learnt all the techniques of industry. Roads and communications will give her unity, economy and thrift will give her funds, and a strong government will give her order and peace. Every chaos is a transition. In the end, disorder cures and balances itself. Old obstacles are cleared away and fresh growth is freed. China has died many times before, and many times she has been reborn. Well, when I read that in 2007, in the light of everything I'd come to know about the region in which I'd grown up, and seeing that I'd just seen the Asian tigers, Japan rise from the ashes, followed by South Korea and Taiwan, followed by Malaysia, who all of which often use dictatorial and policy-driven methods to rebuild themselves from annihilation. Well, we could hardly expect China to do any different. And here we are. But I'd say it's a case of a China reborn can only be an opportunity. It can't be a threat. It's just like, it can't be, because the opportunity is huge. Anyway, that's all.